Yeah, it was 2006, and I'd come back, and I was determined to give triathlon a go. And I said, "Look, Mum, Dad, come and watch this race." And it was the national sprint championships. The writing was on the wall right from the start. I mean, it poured down with rain, and my mum and dad were there in their overcoats and like standing. Oh, this is great. I thought, oh no, I brought them all this way to stand there like ducks in the rain. And then I put my wetsuit on, and I'm thinking, this is not feeling too good. It was a bit baggy.
Yeah.
I thought, oh, it doesn't matter. I get in the water, and being Britain, it's freezing cold, so all the water came flooding in. I thought, oh, the water's come in very quickly. I didn't think too much more of it, and then I started swimming, and it was just a complete drown. I just couldn't lift my arms out of the water. The sleeves were gaping, and the water, every time I lift my arm out, the water floods in. And this is the first and only race I've ever DNF'd. I couldn't swim. I had to raise my arm and get pulled to the shore by a kayaker. And my mum and dad never came to watch another race.
So imagine you're this kayak guy, and you hear that, wait, that girl who just won the Ironman, I think I rescued her in a triathlon 2 years ago. Oh, my God.
Yeah, but it does show that it can happen to anyone, and that there's definitely hope.
There's hope.
There's always hope. If at first you don't succeed, just try again.
So, we have any questions out there? Yes, sir.
It wasn't the wrong suit. It was just, it just didn't fit me properly. It was a borrowed wetsuit. Yeah, it was a borrowed. They don't pay very well in the civil service, so I couldn't afford to buy a new wetsuit. So I borrowed one, but it didn't fit.
We had a question about. Yes, sir. Feel.
Yeah, as many people know, Brett errs on the side of feel rather than on science, and I think I've adopted a lot of his kind of beliefs and concepts and methods. I've never used a heart rate monitor. I've never used power meter. No. Thanks, Bob.
That's what it's called. It's called.
Never going to get sponsored by them, am I? Yeah. So we don't use either of those. There are a couple of athletes in the team that do, but we don't use too much science. We go a lot on feel. Also, I don't tend to log miles and calculate how much I'm doing in terms of volume. When Brett does take a heart rate is after a hard track session, and he takes it after the last set, and then maybe 10 minutes later, and I think from that he can calculate something. Well, I don't quite know what it is. I just tell him what it is, and he nods sagely, and then we go off. But yeah, so no, I don't use that. I know people do find it to be a useful training tool. For me, I go very much on feel. If I'm told to have an easy ride, I know what that feels like, and often your heart can lie, whereas my head can't. So my head tells me when I'm going easy, and when I'm, going eyes to the, the wall. So that's the way we train. It doesn't suit everyone. I'm sure there is a lot to be said for power meters. A lot of people use them.
Whatever they are.
No, I do know what they are, but I haven't ever used one. And I guess the old adage, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Then that kind of rings true with me. I found a method that seems to be working, and I'm kind of reluctant to tinker too much with it lest it affects my performance.
Okay. Yes.
What about your diet? Do you have any sort of a special diet, or as the group that you train with, you guys have, you know, a chef or something that travels with you guys, or what do you do?
I'm the chef.
Are you?
For me. No, we all cook our own meals. We tend to be in self-catering apartments anyway, wherever we're training. Brett has very little input, contrary to what people think about our diet. I eat a lot, probably about, I don't weigh my food, but I'd say around 4,500 calories a day. Carbohydrates, maybe 70% of. Every athlete is obviously different, and we each have our own, you know, individual, you know, personal preferences and diets. But yeah, I mean, obviously we have to eat a lot during training as well. When I do have a tendency, if I'm training very hard, to lose weight. That's not a conscious thing. And Brett does make me eat cheese, a lot of cheese and a lot of chocolate, which is not that difficult. So yeah, I mean, I do have to be careful. I have more of a tendency to lose weight than gain it. So yeah, that's something that I have to be, you know, very careful of and conscious of. So you know, if I do find myself eating, losing too much weight, I get some cheddar sticks and fried mozzarella.
Why the cheese? Just because of the fat in it? Or
yeah, the fat. It's very calorific. I mean, it's very dense in terms of calories, and the calcium is obviously good for me as a woman as well.
So just looking at the top 10 women this year, and you look maybe 2 years ago, the names that were prominent year after year have all didn't feature in the top 10 this year. There's such a wealth of new talent coming through. What's your take on what's happening there? There's just some really strong women coming through.
The question, if you didn't hear, was there's a lot of new women coming into the pro ranks, especially Yvonne van Vlerken, and there's some good gals out there.
Yeah, the field is so much deeper, I think, now than it ever has. You know, before I understand that, you know, there were maybe a handful of girls that would be challenging for the podium. Now, I mean, there'd be a huge amount, and I think that reflects the growth of the sport. You know, the opportunities that women have to get involved in the sport, the role models that people have. People see people like Natasha smiling, enjoying it, and I think it encourages women to get involved. So I think it is right from the club level encouraging women to be more involved. I also think that myself, people like Makili and Natasha raising the bar and encouraging others to rise to it. And I think as people get faster and get stronger, other athletes know that they've got to swim, bike and run faster to be able to meet those new levels. And I think people are rising to it. But yeah, no, there's a depth of talent that hasn't been there before, and it's really fantastic for the sport. It's great to have, you know, new blood in there, to see Europe, Australia, America, I mean a whole heap of different countries represented. I mean it can only be good. It can only be good for the sport, and the deeper that field gets, it will have this snowball effect, and the more age groupers will come up again. So, you know, I only think the future's bright, especially for women in triathlon and Ironman.
How about a big round of applause for our two-time Ironman World Champion, Chrissy Wellington.